There were many legendary voyagers and voyages that come from our ancestral homelands, but this is one in particular where there are 4 healers whom possess duality of spirit, of mind, and body. They are acknowledged for being māhū, and this place between kane, male, between wahine, female, that place is called māhū. And the reason why they were known to be the legendary healers that they were is because they had duality, especially of spirit. Our understanding here in Hawaii that a duality of spirit makes the individual even that much more formidable and that much more able to harness the healing abilities that are at least not only innately within us as a Native people, but also for those of us who are given, what would you say? For those of us who are given a skill, given a gift, and when it is healing, for the individual to be that duality, they're able to harness the power of male and female in one person, and thus even much more potent in their ability to heal. So I welcome you into this space. This is entitled Kapai Mahu, and it talks about the healer stones found on the shores of Waikiki. So welcome.
Thank you. So everyone bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. And all right, can everyone see that? And yeah, okay, and I can expand it too. I want to make sure that I've got sound, share sound. Okay, hang on. Optimize for video clip. Okay, so the sound should work, and I'm going to expand the screen. And are we all still good? I can't see you anymore, so if someone could just let me know.
You're fine, Ten. It's a black screen. It's coming on.
Perfect. All right. We go.
Te au māmo toka kuhi hewa no holi ia o a. Aia no he e hā mau kanaka tūpai ana hau ta holo moana. A haele mai lako mai moa ulanui a kea, a tō mai Hawaii ini. A paia kula, a noho I ulu kou ma Waikiki. A oia mau malihini, heu I Kanaka leo maliu. A he no he waipahe no nae. A ole he tāne, a ole he wahine. He mau māhū lako. He pālua noho I lako makana au, mika no ono a mana ano a pau. A o te inoa ta lako walakai, oia no o ka pai māhū. He mau hiwa ana atua, oia mau tahuna lapa au. puni mana nui. O ki nohi, wahanana I te pāpālua. O ka hāloa, me tāna la au tāhea. A o ka pai māhū o ka tau la au. Waka ana mai no lākou, I to lākou ite me to lākou na awau, I na kanaka o ia pai aina. Lawa pono talako hana. Hou ka I ini e mahalo ia po e tahuna lapa au. Me ka tutulu aku I kikahi mea ho'omana o ia lako. Tapo tāne lako I nau e hei. Wa ātoto a lako makaimu ki. He wahi taulana I tapo hatu kani. Nau e aku me e hā maupo atu nonoi. A hiti loa I waikiki. A ulu mai kala, wai hoa kula lako I talako mana lapa au, me takanu puke tai, I mauti I ho o mana, ma lalo tapo hatu tai tai.
E ala e ka pai mahūni hei o ke aiwa iwa. E ala e ki nohi la au ka ea mauli ola. E ala e ka puni ka huna o ka pohiro. E ala e ka haloa ka hula kane me kana loa. E ala e ka pai mahūni hei o ke aiwa iwa. E ala e ki nohi la au ka ea mauli ola. E ala e ka puni ka huna o ka pohiro. E ala e ka pai mahūni hei o ke aiwa iwa. E ala e
Hala no ho kai mahina, o ta haalele no ia o ka pai mahu ma. A ohe loa e ho I ho mai.
ka haloa ka hula kane me kana loa.
E mau sene tuli mo e mau po hatu makahatei. Hala te au, a loli loa no. A nalu ale ia mo au kala no ka pai mahu. Na lohia me ua mau po hatu, malalo o na hua hale kini popo o loka. O ia no, wa wehe hou ia mai ia mau po hatu e ha. Pēlā no, o ta kulana mahu, o ia mau tahuna lapa au, I ho o nalo ia, ma ta hai mo o lelo mai, no ka pai mahu ma. We, ka mina no hoi. Loha. E oi mau popo I ta mo au kalo ia mau po hatu. Ala ilo oi ike, I to lako mana ola. Ola. E ola loa ta mo olelo, no ka pai mahu.
E uni e awia.
All right. Okay. All right. So we talked about having this as kind of a conversation rather than a structured lecture or something, because in this space dialogue is important, and part of what we wanted to focus on was this idea that kind of this decolonizing gender stemmed from us as a group of originally talking about decolonizing kind of the peace studies field. Gender obviously plays a large role in that, of that it is not a uniform concept throughout the world. So I encourage you, again, I'm going to open the floor up to Kumu Hina again to speak, but I also encourage you all to ask questions. This is meant to be kind of a conversation. So hopefully we can have a great discussion.
Mahalo. Thank you. So, once again, as I mentioned earlier, in my culture and in my language, we have the word called māhū, and we have this concept of the space, that place between the male and the female. It is not, excuse me, it is a relative parallel to what Western construct includes as the LGBTQIA realm of existence in life, not just specifically trans. But the term māhū is beyond the physical. It speaks to the mental and the emotional, as well as the spiritual place that one may hold. So, for example, someone who could look what, again, the Western world would look at as trans, meaning somewhere in the middle, or someone that looks like the gender binary that, many societies will accept as what they were born into. Our term māhū is, how do I say it? It's inclusive of majority of those, the alphabet that are found in LGBTQIA. What's important to consider is how do Hawaiians and how do Pacific Island people in the larger sense, how do we identify? So if I were to restart this and say, aloha mai, my name is Hinaleimoana. I am the child of Georgette Moana Matias and Henry Dayao Wong. My mother Georgette is the daughter of Mona Kananiokalani Kealoha and John Furtado Matias. My father Henry is the son of Edith Gamgiu Lok and Henry Gunlim Wong. I am their child, I am their grandchild, and I am the product of the many generations of my ancestors that hail from not only here in Hawaii, but also from the land known to the world as China. I am also of Portuguese and English descent. So I am multi-ethnic, however, my primary identity is as Hawaiian. That is the first element of how a Hawaiian identifies themselves. The second element is to say the following. I am born and raised here in the islands of Hawaii, on my island of Oahu. The region of my island that I am born in is called the Southern District of Kona Oahu, better perhaps known to the world as Honolulu. It is in the valley of Nu'uanu and I live at the boundary of Liliha and Pu'unui. So the highest peak in the valley of Nu'uanu is called Lanihuli. And there are 3 bodies of water that flow through this valley. They are Waikahalulu, Puwehuwehu, and Nu'uanu. These 3 bodies of water flow to the sea called Mamala. This, sort of in a nutshell, allows me to properly introduce myself and how a Hawaiian identifies themselves to others. We identify by 2 primary things, that is genealogy and land base. Hawaiians and other Polynesians, other Pacific Islanders, we don't necessarily identify ourselves by our sexual identity, our gender identity, nor our sexual preference. And we don't necessarily have to make it a point to call attention to our pronouns, of which you notice I didn't say anything about. My pronouns are, because in my culture, it's irrelevant. The pronoun in Hawaiian, as well as in other Polynesian dialects, is only one word. And depending on the dialect of your island, it's either oia or goia, the root of which is ia. 2 letters, ia, pronounced ia. Ia is he, ia is she, ia is also it, the inanimate and animate object. So ia or oia in my islands, that tells you when we refer to anyone, he, she, or it, that it's only one word. And cultures that have this, we understand that there's a space between the male and the female. So what that really indicates is that in our society, we do not have to delineate the masculine and the feminine, because people are often found to have a balance of both. People who are māhū have an even more prominent representation, and for those of us who have ascended to a greater clarity and a greater understanding, that duality might be very evidently balanced, while in others, one might, in manner, in dress, in their ways, be migrating from one way more to the other, or vice versa. And so with that, that is how I, as a Hawaiian, would identify myself to you, rather than coming to you and saying, hi, I'm Hina and I'm trans. So that's just a glimpse into how the Pacific Island view from the Hawaiian perspective can be articulated. And I'll pause there to see if anybody has any question or any thought.
If you have questions, you can either raise your hands or feel free to just unmute and ask your question. Or if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to put it in the chat and we can read it out.
Well, I guess I'll just start, Kumu Hina. Thank you so much. I may have missed the singular pronoun that you mentioned that was for he, she, it. I heard you speak of ia and aya, he and she, but I didn't. Yeah, okay. I just didn't catch the singular pronoun that you mentioned that was used interchangeably, if I understood that correctly.
No, that's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Oya. So,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
oh, did Mary come to the party yesterday? I wahele mai oya. Yes,
Oya.
she came. Did James go to dinner last night? I wahele oya. He went. Oya. So if everybody were in the virtual world to point to oneself and say, "Wow," and then you look to the person across of you and you say, "Oi," you. And then if you look at the person across you, but you're pointing to somebody else, and you say, "Oya," that person over there. So oya.
Mahalo.
Wow.
Thank you.
I actually have a question as well. And listening to you talk, do you find it difficult, because obviously kind of with the colonization of Hawaii, and that the culture, traditional culture there being so interspersed now with kind of American culture, European culture, do you find, I guess, in the differences in understanding of gender, how do you navigate that, especially when you're working with audiences who oftentimes generally only recognize the gender binary and struggle with some of these traditional ideas that they have not heard before?
Thank you. It's an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked that, because yes, it initially was a struggle, but then I realized the more and more that I spoke about this issue, and the more and more people have asked me to engage about the topic of māhū / its Western parallel, the trans experience in life. Internally, my wiring is such that I'm Hawaiian first. As a colonized people, my people often tend to refer to the continental US as the mainland. And so a long time ago, thanks to a dear professor who has now passed on and, joined the realm of the ancestors, she taught us many years ago about knowing where our mainland is. And for me, my mainland is here in Hawaii. So when I speak to fellow Hawaiians, I will always say, "Where is your mainland?" And the more I ended up speaking about politically oriented things, the more I realized that everything in and out, through what I see, what I hear, what I feel, what I say, everything has to filter through that lens of being Hawaiian first and having Hawaii as my mainland, such that my point of reference is always going to reflect that. So from a long time ago, by not owning that that narrative of being American, most of my people will acquiesce and say that they're American, and say that the U.S. continent, which is not even the rightful land of, settler colonizers, that land belongs to our Native American brothers and sisters in their many, many regions across the continental US. So, again, it used to be a challenge, but now it's quite easy for me, and I am, how do I say it? I'm on a very lonely journey in articulating this perspective, but politically, there are many other political-minded Hawaiians who will acknowledge that we aren't American, but decolonizing the minds and the hearts of my community and my people to see this and to be able to speak from that place, it's been a lonely journey.
Hi, Kumu Hina. This is Leanne Trapito-Sims. We're joining you from Knox College. We have a lot of our students here, including a Native Hawaiian māhū student too, who might want to ask you some questions later as well. But I know in your reference to Hanani K. Trask, I really have admired the work you've done in Hawaii, also at Halava. Do you want to speak a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about how you see your work around being an activist and all the work you've done at Mauna Kea, also with your work that you've done with prisoners in Halava?
Yes, mahalo. You know, what a wonderful and pleasant surprise that you uttered the name of that teacher, because I didn't say her name. How did you recognize that it was her, Leanne?
Yeah,
We're running late.
I studied with Kaunani. I was at the University of Hawaii in Manoa for about 10 years in the American Studies Department. So I had the great fortune to study with Kaunani.
And so you recognized that perspective fell within the realm of what she would have taught?
Yes.
How Nani K. Trask? That's what makes her a legend amongst our people, is that she gave us our freedom. She was the one who helped us to find the key to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually free ourselves. So yes, Kumu Haunani K. Trask. And through that freedom, I have been very, very fortunate to find strength, comfort, solace, resiliency, determination, and confidence, and so much more, knowing that decolonizing the mind meant the need to decolonize the spirit and the heart, and to know that because I identify as Kanaka first, and because I know that as a Kanaka, my mainland is here in Hawaii. Through this understanding, I can unravel the basic tenets of history in Hawaii. I recount them to you at this time. In 1778, Captain James Cook lands his crew, and they bring with them untold sexually transmitted diseases. And for the next nearly 40 years, Hawaii succumbs and experiences near population collapse. Upon the heels of that, in 1819, our people were so ravaged by these STDs that no longer could traditional religion be, the religious perspective that would help to bring healing. And so in 1820, 9 months after the abolition of traditional laws of governance because nothing was working and because our system and our society went upside down and nearly completely underwater because of population collapse. Christian missionaries came and they saw what had happened to our people and they told us that we were bad. Christianity didn't have to be the bad guy, but the ones who brought it to Hawaii were not kind. And they told us that in order to have salvation and to have reprieve granted to us by the God of the foreigners, that we had to accept new ways of thinking and living and new ways of governing ourselves. If you can just imagine that it was forced on us, that it's either accepted or you continue to die. Fast forward, in 1848, the Great Land Tenure shift to private property land ownership, which was a foreign thing to my people. And this is, how do I say it? This resulted in disenfranchisement experienced by my people from our lands. And there were only a limited number of Hawaiians whom could read English. Everybody could read Hawaiian, completely fluent in the written Hawaiian language, but not too many could speak or read English, of which the announcements were made and the interactions were, the transactions were exchanged to transfer land into private property ownership. And of course, this would put our people at conflict with our natural way of land stewardship. On the heels of that, my people economically were bombarded with, an array of not only politically driven but economically driven interests that include the sandalwood trade, the whaling trade. Later on, it would be sugarcane and pineapple. And so, when you think about it, my people were faced with so much in such a short little amount of time that, Western society pretty much took us by storm and swamped us. So by 1887, the Bayonet Constitution was forced upon our king, who was in power at the time, King David Kalakaua, and he was forced to surrender his plenipotentiate power. He became a figurehead king. His sister, whom succeeded the throne upon his death, coming back from America, we believe he was killed. She tried to restore power to the throne, and it was to the dismay of the Americans, who feared for their lives and quote-unquote property, that they called in, American reinforcements. And in 1893, the United States lands its warship, aims its guns at our palace, and imprisons our queen. They try her for treason, not treason against Hawaii and our people, but treason against the United States, of which, at this time, they laid claim to. And finding her guilty, they imprisoned her. By 1898, annexation was formally realized, and Hawaii goes into a provisional government state, to a republic, to a territory, to a state in 1959. And throughout this entire journey, the severe loss of language meant the severe loss of cultural identity. And, there you go. That is, in a nutshell, the way and the path that we've come to find ourselves in this space where Hawaiians have become American. And so anyway, there are quite a number of us who are politically driven by the things that we learned from Kumu Hina Ke Trask. And we see political independence as the true way to really rectify historical trauma and wrongs, and to reinstate our cultural framework on a number of issues and a number of needs that our people have. Sex, sexuality, gender identity, for me, is a part of that. And my work in the community, whether it have been through the incarceration system and Hawaiian men who came to my class or anything else, my standing in the community and my ability to teach is derived from knowledge of culture, knowledge of history, ability to be fluent in our language, and that's been incredible freedom. So yes, my work in the community, again, because I'm Hawaiian first, being Hawaiian supersedes any kind of sex or gender identity, and it renders having me to tell people my pronouns moot, because it's more important to refer to me by the formal acknowledgement of the title Kumu, which means teacher or source. And so as Kumu, and as someone who has taught, and as someone who is looked to for knowledge and information, that comes with great privilege. And the way I present myself is, it begets that response from my community. So I don't have to announce anything. I don't have to identify any pronouns, because all they have to do is look. And if they can't see that, I wish for them to refer to me with the pronouns applied as she, her, hers. It may not fit my voice, but it certainly does fit, the physical representation as I wish them to acknowledge me. And of course, my age, I'll be 51 this month. So I come from that generation where, to be trans, many of us, we pushed ourselves as much as we can to one side, no matter our personality, but in our dress and in our presentation, many of us will identify with that element of she, her, hers. But as I mentioned earlier, being Hawaiian first means that Hawaiian issues, Hawaiian political struggles, and our national flag has always been that which I establish as my platform. So the fact that the Western world would identify me as trans, that's my secondary world altogether. So there you have it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm also with Leanne. My name is Kamana Okekai. I'm Kanaka Maoli. I identify as māhū. And I've been following your work for a while, and you're such a big inspiration. But I was just wondering if you had any advice for those of us who are trying to find our way, not only as māhū, but as Kanaka Maoli, and as people who are trying to learn about our culture. Like, I grew up on the mainland, I don't have the same cultural foundation that I would if I did grow up where my family is from. So I was wondering if you had any advice as to how I could, learn a little bit more about my culture and about myself.
Well, you said it all. If your desire is to establish yourself and synthesize your life in and out as being Kanaka, then I ask you that question. Where is your mainland? At this current point, today, you've identified your mainland as the land that you live on. So with that for me, you may be in a little bit of a limbo for now because you're in your pursuit to know your Hawaiian identity. For as long as that land is your mainland, then you're going to be a native of the diaspora out there in the great wide world, and we'll be here in the homeland, and you'll be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually trying to get here. Whereas if you consider the power that comes from mentally, emotionally, and spiritually rooting yourself here and then navigating your way, then maybe you might have a different opportunity, different doorway to walk in and out of when you have to navigate the world that is helping to define who you are. So for me, I don't let the world around me define me. My mental, emotional, and spiritual place is definitely here. I'm Kanaka first again. Hawaii is my mainland, and that's going to be that. So even if I were living there, our engage here. After I got into this discussion and identified myself as Kanaka, identified myself by establishing my land and my genealogy. That roots me. I don't have to own that narrative. I don't have to, I'm not saying I don't know it. I'm not saying that I can't or won't engage in it. I'm not even saying anything. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that that's not my first narrative. So, I challenge you in your pursuit for clarity and your intent and your effort to not only reinstate yourself to being Kanaka. I guess my question for you is, will you be Kanaka first? If you're going to be Kanaka first, then you might start to see a shift in your world and how you feel. I'm clear about my world and how I feel about it, and that's why being a māhū is irrelevant. Being a māhū is a blessing for me. Being a māhū is a gift. Being a māhū is a responsibility. When one has the responsibility of duality in life, one is able to think, process, and to see the world from both what might be more female and what might be more male. But, imagine being able to know both. And that both is invoked in that word māhū. So when I engage with men and women on any number of topics, especially in the socioeconomic and political world, I tap both sides internally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I tap both sides and I use it to my advantage. So I may come across sometimes I can look like their sister or their auntie at the table, but in the way I think and how I execute, It might be as their sister or their auntie, or it might be as their brother or their uncle, depending on how much I want to assert myself. And I challenge you all to look at dynamics of where you are, and without even having to accept or even understand the world of the Hawaiian on this topic, look at how men communicate, look at how women communicate, and look at the difference between the two, and look at what makes a powerful man and a powerful woman be able to engage, and not only engage, but to be heard and to be acknowledged and to command the attention of the person, of the people that they are engaging with. And then imagine harnessing the power of both in one person. And so rather than focus on sex and gender identity, do what we do as Hawaiians, and we focus on kulana and kuleana. So kulana is to know our rank, our job, our role, our status, our position, our title. That's kulana. If you know your role, then you know your kuleana, you know your responsibility. So role and responsibility in the Hawaiian life, that's first and foremost, and that's key. Again, it's irrelevant, sex and gender identity. Doesn't matter whether you have a penis or a vagina, or want a penis or a vagina. That's all irrelevant. It's what's your role, what's your responsibility. And if you make your role and responsibility first, you just might have a better chance at having a role that can command the aloha, or when I say aloha in this regard, aloha, the world out there, you all may recognize the word aloha, which is hello and goodbye. It also means love, but in this case, the word avails itself to respect. And so by focusing on role and responsibility, title and task, if you would, when you focus on that and make that your priority, it depends on the world that you live in. I don't know the world that you live in, but here, that's been my everything. Role, responsibility, role, responsibility. I don't focus on anything else besides that. And I don't allow people to detract me from that path and deter me from that path either. Especially in and amongst Hawaiians. When I walk into a room full of Hawaiians, I don't ask for permission in that space. I own my place in that space. So, you there who are, you have to follow a different pecking order there, because you're surrounded by the natives of that place who will claim that space often. In this modern time, they'll claim that space to speak, that space to do, and that space to exist in the understanding of who they are. Then you also compete with the settler colonizers whom dominate economically and politically. It's a complex onion, and so without trying to make your journey even harder, I'm just going to say you need to really root yourself to who you feel you are and who you want to be. And if that includes anything in the realm of being Hawaiian, then I ask you that question: where is your mainland? And I'll leave that with you to digest and be food for thought.
Thank you, Kumu. I appreciate it.
Mahalo. I hope that got everybody else thinking and mulling and pondering over this.
Aloha, e Kumu Hina.
Aloha.
My name is Kelly. I too was a haumana of Kumu Haunani, as well as many others on the island of Oahu, Ke Kuni Blaisdell, Kwai Puna Prajin, Uncle Tommy Mountain Pau. But I'm here in Minnesota now, sitting at my desk here on Mokuhonu with my bag full of pronoun buttons that I've been handing out to my students and listening to you talk about the concept of māhū and the meaning and the culture. I'm remembering how liberatory, how much freedom there is in knowing that there are cultures in the world that have a more expansive, inclusive understanding of humanity. And I guess my question for you is if you have any advice for those of us who are in the settler colonial conversation where we can use all these adjectives. I'm cisgender, heterosexual, white woman, but we're fighting to make space in a conversation that addresses the māhū realm as something new. Talking to people who say, oh, I don't believe in pronouns, even though they've used pronouns all their lives. Any advice for how to introduce other cultural understandings and knowledge without simply appropriating? Without saying, oh, let's talk about māhū instead of our pronouns, because the Hawaiians do it better. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
absolutely, yes.
Mahalo.
And thank you for invoking those names into this space. You made me cry.
Sorry.
Because I knew everyone. I knew all of those names. Mahalo. If you went and dug around and you asked the native people of Mokuhonu or Great Turtle Island, and you asked them what are their terms, you asked them what are their perspectives, you asked them how they feel about the space between male and female, and no matter whether it's the third gender or whether it's the third, fourth gender, or no matter whether it's, two-spirit, there's an understanding there, and there's a level of clarity, a level of acceptance, and a level, not just tolerance. I'm not a fan of tolerance because, I could be next to children who are being unruly and rude and out of hand, and I'll tolerate them. It means to me that I'll put up with them. I don't like it. I might be completely perturbed by it, but I'll tolerate it. So that's just a little personal insertion here of my sentiments. I don't like that word tolerance because we see a world, at least coming from America, just how little tolerance there is of anything in it, and on both sides of the American bipartisan spectrum. One side barely tolerates the other, and the other side barely tolerates the other. And that's because the focus, to me, is all wrong. The focus is, why is, Hinaleimoana has no business asking Tana Cruson, Susan Cushman, Michelle Collins, I'm not sure, I can't see the rest of your name, Kelly Kramer, Julie Marie Hyde, Meredith Boucher. I don't have any business asking what's between your legs, what do you want, what do you like. Can you see me? Hello?
We can still see it.
Oh my, okay. Sorry, my screen. I don't have any business inquiring what you like, what you want, why is it even relevant? You know, why is it that I have to make that my focus? You know, that's in me internally where I sit with this. It's not my business. It's not my business who you're sleeping with. It's not my business to say, "Hi, I'm Hina. How's your vagina?" You know, like anything that has to do with the person's physicality and their existence, and talking about sex and gender, that's some very personal stuff. And I shouldn't expect anybody here to fit a category or a box when that's not even necessary, at least because I'm rooted to to an island perspective. Again, I'm Hina. I told you I'm the child of who and who. I told you my land base, and if I had to identify my title and my tasks, my role and my responsibilities, I serve as the cultural ambassador for the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, and that means that my focus in life right now is to be it and all about it for whatever element of culture, history, and language that I can muster. I don't need to. I don't need to dangle my body parts in front of you and say, "Hi, look at this," because this is me. That's counterproductive. I need you to look at me for what I do. I need you to look at me for in the ways that I can serve. I need you to look at me for my skill set and how I carry out my tasks. That's what I need you to look at. And you just all leave my body parts and my preferences, to me. That's my way of saying to you all that that's how I think. That's how I feel. Yeah. I don't have to march with that mask and that I don't have to walk with that narrative first and foremost, like, here it is. Hopefully that helps you. Mahalo. Sailor.
Hi, Kumu. I'm so happy to meet you. I too have been inspired by you for years and years and years, and you've helped me become the person I am. I was wondering something you said earlier about like feeling really alone in your work. I do a lot of organizing and activism around like fighting pipelines and climate justice and things. And a lot of the people I'm around who I really value the relationships and stuff, but they're super not inclusive in terms of like gender and being cool and respectful. And I was wondering if with some of the work you're doing in Hawaii, if like how you navigate that, like if you have any advice, because sometimes I go into spaces and I'm like, I'm like putting my life force into just trying to make change happen and being, like you said, like what's my responsibility in this space that I occupy and stuff. But then everyone around me is sometimes like really mean and disrespectful.
What do you mean they're mean? How are they mean?
Like I'll be like, hey, I'm sailor, they, them, like I'm non-binary, like whatever, I'm trans, like this is the language I work with, because I don't actually also I think I don't have a mainland that I was thinking of that. So but like they just kind of refuse to accept me how I am, and like even sometimes like especially like so yeah, it's like I feel like I kind of the vibe that you have where you're like, okay, this is who I am, like I'm open to everyone, like please come with me with who exactly you are. And then people come back to me like just like with a constant stream of disrespect and like just kind of non-acceptance, and I don't know how to deal with it. Like I feel like it's wearing me down and make me want to back out of like interacting with people in general.
Well, gosh, I don't blame you. But I encourage you to consider this. Again, it's different. This is one of the reasons why I don't like coming there to where you all are. Because then it forces me into that environment where it's like this. Can we watch me, everybody? See if you can get this. In that environment, it's like this. Like, and I'm gonna make you focus here, right here. And I'm gonna put it right there. Like this is what you're gonna see. Whereas if I step back like this, you can see more of me. You know what I mean? So when I walk into a space, aloha, I'm Hina. Perhaps maybe that might be a little bit more revealing of why I did not stay just in the middle. Why I don't try to command physically more of an in the middle space. Why I chose to pull. I mean, you're only seeing my face here, but when Kumu Hina presents as quote unquote Kumu Hina, I'm going to try to present as put together as I can be. And if you can't see that, I would prefer you to say she, her, hers. Because again, that's reflective of my age group. Younger people are okay with they, them, theirs, but that's from Hawaiian cultural view, that's more on the lines of only one pronoun. Oya, he, she, it. But again, I'm Hinaleimoana. I know my task, and I know my title. I know my task. I know my role. I know my responsibility. If you're not going to look at me for that, then that's not my problem. And for the people that will address me as he, him, his in that way, I just sort of look at them like, oh, you're really not with the times, are you? But then again, I don't try to give them so much real estate in my head and my heart. Why? I'm not into giving free rent, emotionally and mentally to people whom just either don't want to get it or won't get it. That's them, and I have no time for that. I have other things to do. Have them see you as sailor, just sailor. What does sailor do? And if if you devoted your entire time to having people focus on that, on sex and gender identity and all that kind of stuff, I'm just going to tell you that the people that you're probably around are the people that are the weakest, and they're probably the most uninformed, They're probably the most insecure. They're probably the most unable or unwilling to deal with those things. And the more you force them to deal with something they don't want to deal with, what's the normal reaction? You know, the knee-jerk reaction is going to be run away from it, deny it, denounce it, you know, reject it. And therefore, that's what you get. Because, like me, I'm surrounded by some of the same people. But they don't have any time to focus on that because I don't focus on it. So, I mean, that's up to you. If you want to focus on those things, be my guest. But when you focus on those things, that's par for the course. When I walk into a room full of men that bristle when I walk in because they feel some kind of way, I don't have to feel some kind of way right along with them. I just remind them, not by any direct words, but I remind them by my posture, my stance, and how I'm engaging that I belong here just as much as you do. And if you're not about to give me time, well, I'm not about to ask you for time. I'm just going to take my time and I'm going to command it. And I'm sorry if my presence offends you, but, well, we have other things to do. Let's not focus on me. Because I know that it's either you really want somebody like me for your experiences, or you want to be this kind of person in this kind of freedom, but you're too afraid to. That's where I'm here. Because trust me, all the haters, my personal experience with all the haters, all the ones who will denounce us from the pulpit, and all the ones who will disavow and devalue us, and the ones who will chide on us the most and denigrate us till no end, they're all the ones who suppress all of their latent desires, and can't tell you how many times that's been the case. All the ones who needed to cover up or needed to hide their truths, their salient realities of who they are, what they like, and what they want. They're the worst ones. And to me, that says that they're weak. And so I just say, oh, poor thing. Well, whatever. One day, hopefully, you'll come along. Thanks. We have other things to do. Moving right along. Don't let them have free rent in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit. Don't give them that much. You give them too much credit. Why? Why should you give them so much credit? Do you require anything from them? Of course not. I don't require anything from you. I require nothing from you. Sorry, I don't mean to seem conceited or arrogant, but it's true. Why do I need your approval? I don't need your approval. You paying my bills? No, you pay nothing. Are you providing food for me? Sustenance for me? Are you loving me or loving on me? No. You're irrelevant. Completely and totally irrelevant. Hi, Caesar. I see you.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Oh, go ahead.
No. Hopefully that, hopefully that gets you all thinking.
I wanted to say we have about 7 minutes left. So we have room for a few more questions. I did want to say something as for, we organized this discussion, and I came to this discussion. I'm a cisgender white female who tends to look the stereotypical feminine thing. So I guess part of me, and I didn't realize it until you started talking, maybe assumed that there wasn't going to be a lot maybe for me in this discussion, or that would really, but you've said so many things that are, I just think, such amazing takeaways for all of us about having that blend of kind of male and female, and that it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think this idea of like decolonizing genders, I think for those of us who operate in kind of these traditional gender spaces in Western kind of binary things, I didn't realize until you started talking about how much I'm constantly struggling with. I tend to be very direct. I work with NATO predominantly. I work in male dominated environments and always have. And I, without being crude, get told frequently that I wear my dick out. Somebody told me that.
Exactly, girl.
Somebody told me that a couple weeks ago. You wear your dick out too much. You need more feminine energy. And I've always wrestled with that, because if I can't bring feminine energy to some of those spaces, and I didn't even realize till you started talking how much of, even for, I think probably we all struggle with this, and that's that idea of the need to decolonize gender, of that it's okay to bring those other energies to something that we don't traditionally look like we should be in that space. So I so appreciate what you've talked about. It's really...
Thank you. You have made my day at almost 5:30 a.m. here in Hawaii. So I'm going to say to you, Tana, yes. So they're so they're envious that when you wear your dick out, it's imposing upon them, and they don't like it because you're encroaching upon them and their space, and they've owned it in their way for probably too long. So you come and screw it up, and they're not liking it. And so it tells you that you're doing something good, because if you have a job to do and you're going to do it, then you're going to do it in a way that you can do best. Don't let anyone ever tell you that you wearing your dick outside should ever be something that is either offensive. Great. Love it. You love it. And you know what? Wear it out all the time. Just let it hang there for them. Let them salivate over it, because, like I said, they can't handle power. And that's your power. And a biological male or female doesn't need to have to buy into the gender binary silos of understanding. And really, true power comes from balance. True power comes from knowing the dynamics and the ebb and flow internally of one's own internal existence and who you are. And when you have to interact or interface with others around you, then you shift. And if you know, or if you feel that you have to influence that moment, you're going to influence it in this way or that way. You know? I don't know. I'm just going to say more power to you, dear. More power to you. Thank you for pointing that out. You're a cisgender white woman. And, well, hey, got a big dick. That's quite intimidating for men who don't like to not be in power.
I think Michelle has a question. So,
yes, aloha.
Aloha. Less a question than a comment. Everything that I've been pondering your words, and it's helped me to achieve some clarity. I was teaching in Ghana a couple of summers ago, and someone asked why I kept coming back to Ghana. And I said, well, I'm not from here, but I feel at home here. And as I'm listening to this discussion, I realized that for
for me, my mainland is the diaspora. I'm a native of the diaspora, and that is something that I think I've been struggling with, but realizing that this is my task and my responsibility, particularly as a teacher. So I just wanted to say thank you. I've really appreciated the space that you've created for me to be able to think this through a little more clearly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I think unless we have kind of anybody else who wants to weigh in or say anything, I think we're about at time. So I'll just give it a second of silence to see if anybody else wants to jump in. Okay. So I just thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with us and kind of enlighten us. And I think Michelle said it well, make us ponder about your words. Because I think this has been such a meaningful discussion. And I'm going to go on a limb and say it's made all of us kind of think. And that's the goal. That's what we all should be doing, is that mindfulness in this peace space. So thank you all for taking time out of your mornings, and Kumu, in your case, your very early morning. So we will close it out, but this recording, I know you all saw that it's recorded, so